But this time, we are hosting Putin, the wartime leader. It's a significant moment for both sides. We'll bring you all the updates from the last few hours, also a sneak peek into the logistics of this trip. How does President Putin travel? And what sort of security does he have? Meanwhile, your travel could also be at risk. All thanks to a pilot shortage at Indigo Airlines. We'll tell you what triggered it. Also on the show, what's the next Imran Khan-Asim Munir showdown? Why do Europeans think that Donald Trump is their enemy? Why are the US and the UK halting their probes into Chinese snooping? What is the significance of Navy Day in India's military ecosystem? And what is driving the placement boom at IITs this year? All this and more lined up. The headlines first. Iran kick off naval war games in the Gulf. Its Revolutionary Guards Corps warns US warships in the area. This comes more than 5 months after Tehran's 12-day war with Israel, which drew in American forces. The Gulf and the strategic Strait of Hormuz channel about 20% of the world's oil exports every year. Israel strikes South Lebanon again, claims the target was Hezbollah's military infrastructure. Just a day earlier, Israel and Lebanon held their first direct talks in decades. Beirut says it is committed to disarming Hezbollah, but the group has rejected the idea. Iraq reverses its decision to freeze the assets of Hezbollah and the Houthis. Last month, Baghdad froze the assets of the Iran-backed groups, accusing them of acts of terrorism. Now, Iraq's central bank says it was a mistake. The Prime Minister has ordered an investigation into the quote-unquote error. South Africa says it is prepared to wait out next year's G20 as tensions continue with the United States. This month, Washington took over the year-long presidency from Pretoria. The US had largely boycotted South Africa's tenure. Donald Trump has said that Pretoria will not be invited to the G20 summit in Miami next year. And the European Union hits Meta with an antitrust probe over its AI features on WhatsApp. The bloc is probing whether the Mark Zuckerberg-owned company breached its competition rules. WhatsApp has dismissed the claims as baseless. This is the EU's latest attempt to rein in big tech. Russian President Vladimir Putin is in India. He landed earlier this evening at Delhi's Palam Airport, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi was there to receive him. They left the airport together in the same car. In receiving President Putin personally, Prime Minister Modi broke diplomatic protocol. He's not required to go to the airport, but he did. It's a gesture he reserves for India's closest friends, and it's a theme that will play out repeatedly through this visit. Putin will spend all of 27 hours in India. It's his first trip to India in 4 years, the first one since the war in Ukraine began. The timing could not have been more crucial and the stakes could not have been higher. Putin is visiting India for the 23rd annual India-Russia summit. And India is pulling out all the stops. Prime Minister Modi is hosting the Russian president with full honors. Tonight, both leaders will meet for a private dinner. There were 2 meetings earlier today. The Russian defense and health ministers arrived early and they met their Indian counterparts, the Indian ministers, earlier today. These meetings were to set the agenda for the talks tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be a packed day with a series of high-level meetings, summit-level talks between Prime Minister Modi and President Putin, an address to top Indian CEOs, and then in the evening a state banquet hosted by the Indian President. This will be at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. As you can imagine, there's a lot on the agenda. Topping the list is trade. including India's purchases of Russian oil. In the last 3 years, it's become a key pillar of the relationship. India is the world's third largest oil consumer, but it was not a major buyer of Russian crude. That changed in 2022. When Russia went to war in Ukraine, Western sanctions made Russian oil cheaper. So India started buying more from Russia. Until recently, 35% of India's oil was coming from Russia. Then came Trump's tariffs and sanctions. The US imposed 50% tariffs on India. This was supposed to be punishment for buying Russian oil. It was a pressure tactic. Then Trump sanctioned Russian oil. And Indian purchases dropped significantly, although they have not stopped completely. Russia would want to change that to get India to buy more oil. And this may lead to a wider conversation on trade. This year, the India-Russia bilateral trade hit a new record. It crossed $68 billion. That's a big number, 68 billion. But it's stacked heavily in Russia's favor. India's exports to Russia are valued at less than $5 billion. Russia's exports to India are worth over $60 billion. That's mostly because of the oil that India buys from Russia. It's a significant gap and it's only growing. India would want to reverse this trend, and this summit is an opportunity to expand trade with Russia. This can also help Indian exporters. They're facing trade barriers in the West. Russia can give them some breathing room and an alternative market. So trade will feature heavily in the talks. The second big ticket item is defense. Russia has been India's top arms supplier for decades. It is still the biggest, but the volumes have shrunk in recent years. Now a new deal could be on the cards. Reports say India is set to lease a Russian submarine, a nuclear-powered sub. You see, older submarines ran on nuclear or electric power. This submarine will have a small reactor on it. It will be nuclear powered. It's like having limitless power. You don't need frequent refueling. So the submarine can remain underwater for a long time. It can conduct deep sea missions for longer periods. Now, Russia and India have been discussing this deal for a long time. Reports say it was finalized just before the visit. India will pay around $2 billion to lease one submarine. Russia is also keen to push more defense deals. This includes fighter jets and missile systems. Putin's visit may expedite things. Apart from this, there's talk of a mobility pact. Russia wants to welcome more Indian workers. It faces a labor shortage. So a pact could allow free movement of skilled as well as semi-skilled workers. Then we come to the war in Ukraine. Will it come up in the talks? Well, it might. Putin has arrived in New Delhi just days after rejecting a new peace proposal. It was being mediated by the Americans. It was being pushed by Donald Trump. But Putin rejected it. Russia believes it has the battlefield advantage. Russian troops are advancing on the ground, and the Kremlin sees no urgency to negotiate. Putin may update Prime Minister Modi on the latest round of talks. 2 days ago, he met an American delegation. It was led by Trump's top advisor, Steve Witkoff, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. It will be interesting to see India's take on this, because Prime Minister Modi has repeatedly said this is not the era for war, and he had the same message in Tianjin too.
यूक्रेन में चल रहे संघर्ष के विषय में हम लगातार चर्चा करते रहे हैं। हाल में किए गए शांति के सभी प्रयासों का हम स्वागत करते हैं। हम आशा करते हैं कि सभी पक्ष कंस्ट्रक्टिवली आगे बढ़ेंगे, संघर्ष को जल्द से जल्द खत्म करने और स्थायी शांति स्थापित करने का रास्ता खोजना होगा। ये पूरी मानवता की पुकार है।
So with Putin in New Delhi, will the Prime Minister push him to take a peace deal? It's unlikely. India is expected to stick to its same message, resolve the conflict mutually. And beyond policy and deals, this summit, like all summits, is also about the optics, about the signaling. The India-Russia partnership is an old one, but in recent months, it has gained fresh momentum. Prime Minister Modi met President Putin in China. This was just 3 months back. They met in the Chinese port city of Tianjin, where both leaders had gone for the SCO summit. SCO is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. SCO is a regional bloc focused mostly on security. But the summit went beyond that. It delivered a powerful message. Take a look at this. Prime Minister Modi holding hands with Putin and Xi Jinping, the leaders sharing a joke. Later that day, Prime Minister Modi took a ride in Putin's car. These were powerful images. And they came just days after the US raised tariffs on Indian goods. And today we saw something similar. President Putin arrived. Prime Minister Modi received him. The two leaders rode together in the same car. This is a message to the West that despite their pressure, India exercises strategic autonomy and Russia is far from isolated. On repeated occasions, President Putin has called Prime Minister Modi a dear friend and Russia's relationship with India special.
Dear Prime Minister, dear friend, Russia and India have been maintaining special, friendly, trusting relations for decades, and this is a basis for the development of our relations.
The meeting in Tianjin set the tone. The summit in Delhi hopes to build on it. For Putin, this visit is about showing Russia's strength. For India, it's a demonstration that it still has choices and it won't be boxed in. That welcome on the tarmac said it all. Vladimir Putin is in India. New Delhi has rolled out the red carpet and the world is watching. So Putin has arrived in India, but getting him here was not easy. And I don't mean the politics, I mean the logistics. We're talking about a very secretive world leader. Rumors follow him, mystery surrounds him, and it's no different when he travels. Because there's a lot of security, also a lot of smoke and mirrors. So tonight, let's also look at President Putin's travel entourage. What is he bringing from Russia? Let's start with a plane. Putin travels in this flying fortress, the Ilyushin IL-96-300. His plane is designated as the 300 PU, where PU is Russian for command post. This aircraft first flew in 1988. It officially entered service in the 1990s. The plane is around 55 meters in length. It has a wingspan of more than 60 meters. The aircraft is powered by 4 turbofan engines. It can fly 11,000 kilometers non-stop, meaning it's perfect for long travel. Inside, it's a mix of luxury and lethality. You have fully encrypted communication systems, you have radar, jammers and missile defenses, and you have a backup nuclear command center. It's basically a flying Kremlin. Putin can run the country from inside this plane. At the same time, it's luxurious, a private presidential suite, gold-plated fittings, neoclassical furnishings, and premium leather seats. Like I said, luxury and lethality. Putin's plane stands out among other world leaders. Most of them use Boeing or Airbus jets, but Putin's plane is entirely Russian-made. And in the belly of that plane is Putin's car. I'm sure you've guessed it by now. It is not a normal car. Putin used to travel in a Mercedes Pullman. But recently he switched to one of these, the Aura Senat. It is 7 meters long and it weighs several tons. Many people call it a Russian Rolls-Royce. Again, look at the specs. The Senat has a 4.4-liter V8 engine. It produces around 600 horsepower and it goes from 0 to 100 in 6 seconds. Only 120 units are produced every year in Russia, and Putin's version, of course, is special. It can repel bullets and grenades. It comes with independent oxygen supply. It can suppress fires. And it's got a mini command center inside. Basically, it's a fortress on wheels. This vehicle has become a feature of Putin's power play. Last year, he gifted one to Kim Jong-un. This year, he took Prime Minister Modi on a ride at the SCO summit. Just like the plane, the car is all Russian. It is part of the president's political messaging. He wants to cut off Western dependence. So we've covered the plane and the car. Now let's look at the security. Putin is one of the most guarded leaders in the world. His security is handled by the FSO, the Federal Protective Service. Think of them as Russia's secret service. They visit locations in advance, they conduct security sweeps, they vet people and protocols, and only then will President Putin arrive. His personal guards have a strict recruitment process. You must be under 35 years of age, you must be 180 centimeters tall, and you must be combat ready. Now, most of the security is understandable. Russia is the largest nuclear power in the world. Right now, it's a country at war, and Putin runs a very tight ship. So this intricate security makes sense. But now things get a bit weird. Putin travels with his own chef and food lab. All of his food is tasted by a presidential bodyguard. Only then will President Putin eat it. And that's not all. Reports say the Russian team also carries a poop suitcase. It's exactly what it sounds like. The Russian team collects Putin's fecal waste. They take it back with them to Russia. This strange protocol has been reported in Alaska, France, Austria, and Saudi Arabia. Officially, there is no word on it. And the obvious question is why? Why would they do it? Apparently, Russia fears that someone will test the fecal waste, and if they test it, they could access Putin's health information. So to prevent that, Russia takes back the waste. Beyond this, you have the usual rumors and allegations that Putin has body doubles, that a fake Putin travels with a real one. Now, all of that is just unconfirmed speculation. Having said that, you can't deny the scale of this operation, the protection, the paranoia, and the protocol. It is unmatched.
This
पैसा लगाना है तो सेंचुरी प्लाइ क्लब प्राइम पे लगाओ। डूबेगा नहीं, जलेगा भी नहीं, कोई खा नहीं जाएगा, धोखा नहीं देगा, ऊपर नीचे भी नहीं होगा, सेफ रहेगा, सिक्योर्ड भी, मिनिमम 30 साल का रिटर्न देगा। अब इससे बेटर इन्वेस्टमेंट है तो बताओ। सेंचुरी प्लाइ क्लब प्राइम, रहो बेफिक्र।
the all-new Hyundai Venue Tech Up Go Beyond.
फिनिस्टा विंडोज, ब्यूटीफुल एंड ड्यूरेबल डिजाइन्स, इंस्टॉलेशन से मेंटेनेंस की लाइफ लॉन्ग कस्टमर सर्विस। आपके घर में फिनिस्टा नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए।
Find Finer Finesta. The all-new Hyundai Venue Tech Up Go Beyond.
फिनिस्टा विंडोज, ब्यूटीफुल एंड ड्यूरेबल डिजाइन्स, इंस्टॉलेशन से मेंटेनेंस की लाइफ लॉन्ग कस्टमर सर्विस। आपके घर में फिनिस्टा नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए।
Find Finer Finesta.
सल्यूट है जी, आप देश की रक्षा में जान लगा देते हैं और आप घर घर में तार लगाते हैं जी। ई बीम टेक्नोलॉजी से बनी, न जले न पिघले, सबकी रक्षा करे।
हम सरहद पर लोगों की रक्षा करते हैं और आप देश के अंदर। सल्यूट तो बनता है जी।
अपार अनुशक्ति फायर प्रोटेक्ट वायर, अपार देश का तार।
Stay ahead with News 18. News from your city in your language. Real-time updates, in-depth analysis, and breaking news. Anytime, anywhere. Only on the News 18 app. Scan and download the News 18 app now.
फिनिस्टा विंडोज, ब्यूटीफुल एंड ड्यूरेबल डिजाइन्स, इंस्टॉलेशन से मेंटेनेंस की लाइफ लॉन्ग कस्टमर सर्विस। आपके घर में फिनिस्टा नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए।
Find Finer Finesta. Stay ahead with News 18. News from your city in your language. Real-time updates, in-depth analysis, and breaking news. Anytime, anywhere. Only on the News 18 app. Scan and download the News 18 app now.
Conversations, the broad contours of the conversation would have already begun. Yes, they are stepping in together. They are stepping in together. They are going together. There you go. The import of this is important. This looks like the president's vehicle. The president's vehicle in which Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also seated. the president sitting right behind the chauffeur, the drive conversations, the broad contours of the conversation would have already begun. Yes, they are stepping in together. They are stepping in together. They are going together. There you go. The import of this is important. This looks like the president's vehicle. The president's vehicle in which Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also seated. The president sitting right behind the chauffeur, the driver's side, and Prime Minister sitting to the president's left. And the two leaders are already conversing. The SPG, the Russian security protocol, all of them sitting there. There are pictures that are being taken of the two leaders, and we'll have those pictures also being released in a bit. But Shashangi is with us. This is significant. After Tianjin, the second time the two leaders are traveling in the same vehicle. This is very rare. Shashangi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. So there is a very time constraint is there. They have to discuss. There's so many issues of great importance for bilateral relations and for the global situation as it is evolving, and issues of war and peace, that I think it's important that they should discuss this in the cars in a safe environment and take every opportunity to express their thoughts to each other.
But this is quite rare. This doesn't happen often. Surya Jayanti, Nikita Menkovich with us. Nikita Menkovich, this will be important. The Russians will be watching this. There is a show of fist and then, of course, something symbolic. There's a conversation that's happening. We can see the Prime Minister quite animated. But this is important. President Putin doesn't do this often with many.
If you're flying in India right now, let's take a moment of silence, a prayer, a hope, a wish, anything. Because your flight may or may not take off. It may be delayed, it may be cancelled. And even if you do take off, you have no idea when you will land. And your luggage, well, it may not reach the destination, because right now, air travel in India is like a casino. You walk in, you place your bet, and the house always wins. But why has it come to this? What is causing this national airport meltdown? The answer, or at least a big part of it, can be summed up in one name: Indigo. It's an aviation giant in India, and it is in turbulence. Some of its flights have been delayed by 8, 10, even 12 hours. Others never took off. In the last 48 hours, nearly 300 flights have been cancelled, 300 cancellations. Passengers were stranded on airports. You can see the pictures on your screens. It looks like there's a sudden sale announcement at the airport. The passengers were obviously frustrated. Many spent the night at the airport. It was utter chaos. But what led to this? Indigo has blamed it on almost everything. They're calling it a multitude of unforeseen challenges. Minor tech glitches, winter schedule adjustments, bad weather, airport congestion, and most importantly, the new rules for pilots. These are FDTL rules, Flight Duty Time Limitation Rules, FDTL. These rules are meant to make flying safer, but they seem to have grounded India's largest airline. Let me explain how. Think of the FDTL rules as a sleep schedule for pilots. Now they're supposed to sleep longer because India's aviation regulator has changed the rules. That's the DGCA, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation. It's the national watchdog. It has made some key changes. Weekly rest has been increased from 36 hours to 48 hours for a pilot. A pilot must be off work for at least 48 hours in a week. Night hours have been extended by 60 minutes. Night landings have been capped at 2 per week. Earlier there were 6. 6 were allowed. And pilot duty hours have been cut significantly. Basically, more rest and less flying for the pilots. And this has been done in the interest of safety. It sounds like a fair move, unless you're an airline running with a lean workforce and high overnight operations. Then these rules become a problem for you. And Indigo has been the worst hit. 3 reasons why. they're the worst hit. First is their scale. Indigo runs more than 2,200 flights in a day. Air India runs around half that number. So even a 10% cancellation for Indigo would mean 220 flights cancelled. When Indigo sneezes, the entire aviation industry catches a cold. That is reason number one. Reason two, strategy. Indigo is the king of red-eye flights, late-night, high-frequency operations. The goal is to squeeze every last rupee of each aircraft. But the new rules do not allow that. Reason three, staffing. Pilot associations say Indigo knew about this, but they did nothing. They froze hiring. They underestimated the impact. They maintained lean staffing, did not prep for the new rules, and even cut pilot leave quotas. The result is this wide disruption that we see. Indigo is known for its punctuality, but on Wednesday, its on-time performance dropped to 19.7%. At one point, only 1 in 5 flights took off on time. So what is India's aviation regulator doing about it? How are they going to fix this? Well, they summoned Indigo today. They asked the airline to submit a mitigation plan. And where does that leave the passengers? Because they are not exactly spoiled for choice. The Indian skies are ruled by 2 airlines, Indigo and Air India. Between them, they control over 85% of the air traffic. It's a classic duopoly, and that means when one airline collapses, the entire system collapses. Passengers have nowhere else to go. Fares of other carriers shoot up. The fact is, Air India cannot absorb the spillover because of its own fleet issues. Smaller players cannot scale overnight. So when the biggest pillar falls, the whole system crumbles. Indigo says it needs 48 hours to stabilize. The airline is cutting schedules, cancelling flights proactively, reworking crew rosters, adjusting night operations, and trying to rebuild buffer positions. Airports will remain messy for another couple of days. So what should you do as a passenger? Well, first of all, keep checking your flight status. Arrive early because the queues are long. Carry snacks, medication, and chargers. Pick refundable tickets. Avoid tight connections. Monitor Indigo's social handles, and obviously prepare for delays. And I hope the policymakers are watching this. Because this is not just about one airline having a bad week. This is a wake-up call for India's aviation system. The industry has grown fast, but infrastructure, workforce, and regulation have not kept pace. So maybe this chaos is a sign that India's skies need more capacity, more competition, and more preparedness. Some countries worry about inflation, some worry about elections, some worry about technological growth, but Pakistan wakes up wondering where its prime minister is. Do you know why? Because he has to sign off power to the country's army chief, Asim Munir. Pakistan's so-called field marshal, supreme commander in waiting. He's waiting for a signature of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. But Sharif has disappeared like the hero's twin in a Pakistani soap opera. Let me tell you what happened. November 29th was supposed to be a special day for Asim Munir. He was supposed to slide into his new chair, the chair of the Chief of Defence Forces, CDF. It's a newly created mega post for him to lead the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. It makes Asim Munir the supreme commander. It was his bid to consolidate power to become the most powerful man in the country. The Pakistani parliament passed a constitutional amendment to this effect. The military had cleared the decks. Even the chairs in Rawalpindi were rearranged. All that was left was Shehbaz Sharif's signature. Just one signature. But it never came. It was supposed to come on the 29th of November. It's the 4th of December today. And Sharif's sign is still pending. Again, the question is why? Where is Shehbaz Sharif? Reports say he has left the country. I must add here that we cannot verify these reports. Most observers believe that Shehbaz Sharif is in hiding because he does not want to hand over power to Munir. And it makes sense Because Munir is already very powerful and the Prime Minister is already a ceremonial puppet, maybe Shehbaz Sharif has finally realized that he doesn't like his strings. So he does not want to cede more power, more space. And as this drama unfolds, we have a surprise entry. Imran Khan, the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, currently in jail and until recently the subject of intense speculation. Was he dead or alive, they asked. Let us see proof of life, they protested. The jail authorities finally complied. Imran Khan was indeed alive and now he's suddenly very vocal. He's relaying messages on social media. Imran Khan has called Asim Munir mentally unstable. He said Munir is trying to impress the West and in doing so he has broken Pakistan and ruined the law. Imran Khan says Asim Munir was responsible for igniting tensions with Afghanistan. That's a lot of accusations in one post. But if you know their history, you won't be surprised. There's no love lost between Khan and Munir. They've been at loggerheads for a while, although this post does not address the main issue, Asim Munir becoming the CDF. It would give him total control over all three defense services, immunity from prosecution, influence over promotions, and of course access to the nuclear command. Basically, the army chief would be like a president in uniform minus a coup. If Shehbaz Sharif signs it, he will be Munir's personal paperweight. If he doesn't sign it, he risks Munir's fury. And what does a weak Pakistani civilian leader fear more, being irrelevant or being overthrown? It's quite the dilemma, which is why Shehbaz Sharif has just left the chat. And it's a plot that we've seen before. Every decade, Pakistan picks up the same storyline. A civilian leader tries to act brave, only for the army to put them back in their place. There's a crisis, someone disappears, someone gets jailed, the military gets stronger, the republic or whatever is left of it gets weaker. So is Asim Munir's coup on hold? Well, it may be for now. But how long will the military wait? How long and how far can Shehbaz Sharif run? The clock is ticking. Pakistan is watching, but the army does not seem too worried. It's almost like an OTT platform releasing a season in 2 parts. The world is not holding its breath to see how it ends, because no matter what they do, we all know the ending. Our next story takes us to Europe. It's an anxious continent. There's a war going on its border. There's a peace plan it cannot influence. And there's a president in America it does not trust. A new survey is out. It features 9 European countries and it finds that Europeans see an enemy in Donald Trump. Nearly half of them think of the US president as an enemy of Europe. The average is 48%. Of course, in some countries, the number is higher. Our next report tells you why.
Europe is unsettled by a combination of political shocks arriving at the same time. A war on its doorstep, a peace plan it cannot shape, and the United States led by a president many Europeans no longer trust.
Thank you very much.
A new survey captures this mood clearly. It spans 9 European countries and it delivers one headline. Nearly half of Europeans now see US President Donald Trump as an enemy of Europe. That number stands at 48% on average. It climbs to 62% in Belgium and 57% in France. It's 53% in Spain, 50% in Italy and 46% in Germany. But it's much lower in Croatia and Poland. Yet the pattern is continental. The share of people reportedly calling Trump neutral has fallen, and the share calling him hostile has grown. This distrust doesn't exist in a vacuum. Europe is living through a period of heightened insecurity. The war in Ukraine has redrawn its defense landscape. Leaders warn the threat from Moscow is persistent, and the public agrees. Many believe the risk of conflict involving Europe is real. Many reportedly fear their countries could not defend themselves alone. Most now look to the European Union for protection. They want the bloc to play a larger security role, and they describe the continent as vulnerable in ways rarely seen since the Cold War. These fears are compounded by events unfolding around the Ukraine peace push. European governments worry that any deal shaped in Washington and Moscow may overlook their interests. Trump's envoys have met Ukrainian officials without any European representation. They've also met Vladimir Putin while Europe watches from the sidelines. Analysts say many on the continent now expect an uncomfortable settlement, one that could leave Russia holding more Ukrainian territory, and one that could weaken Europe's security position. The distrust shown in the survey reflects this anxiety, but look at the timing. This concern is growing just as Trump faces pressure at home. Trump's net approval ratings have reportedly dropped to a second-term low. In November, one poll put his approval rating at just 38%. It's his lowest level since returning to office. Americans cite rising living costs as a reason. They've also cited frustration over the release of the Epstein files as another reason. But Trump's dipping popularity in Europe is because most of them see him as a US president who's a potential risk rather than a partner, and a war that still has no clear end. The survey does not just measure attitudes about Trump, it captures a continent that feels vulnerable, a continent watching the United States closely, and a continent unsure whether the next decisions taken in Washington will make it safer or leave it more exposed.
Our next story is about China, about their spies and hacking, and about the response of the West, because something unusual is happening here. For years, Western governments warned their people about Chinese espionage. They called it a threat. They issued alerts. They spoke about hacking campaigns and data theft. But the same governments now refuse to act against China. Let me show you a new report. It says the US has halted plans to sanction China's spy agency. It's called the Ministry of State Security. It is Beijing's most powerful intelligence arm, and the US was planning to sanction it because of a massive hacking operation. A campaign called Salt Typhoon. It breached telecom networks, it penetrated a US National Guard system, and it accessed unencrypted communications of senior American officials. In simple words, the US said China was spying on American systems, and they were doing so at a very large scale. Beijing, of course, denied those accusations, and the US has now decided to stop the sanctions. The question is why? And the short answer is politics and economics. The Americans do not want to fight with the Chinese. They've just agreed to a trade truce. When Trump met Xi in South Korea, this was in the month of October, they met and they agreed to a truce. As part of this deal, the US did pause its 100% tariffs on China. And China agreed to export rare earth minerals. These minerals are crucial for modern life. They make electric vehicles, wind turbines, computers, defense technology. China is their biggest supplier, and the US relies on China for these minerals. They want to keep getting them. They do not want to rock the boat with sanctions on Chinese spies. That's one reason. And then there's another factor. President Trump wants to visit China in April next year. He does not want a fight with Beijing before that. So Washington has decided against the sanctions despite the spying. And they're not the only ones going soft on China. The United Kingdom is doing the same. London has called China a quote-unquote security threat. It says Chinese spies target the UK prolifically and aggressively, and that China collects huge amounts of data. But what did the UK do about it? Well, they had a high-profile spy case which collapsed. 2 men were accused of spying for Beijing, but the case against them was dropped because there was not enough evidence. The prosecutors could not prove that China was a threat. A parliamentary committee investigated the collapse of the case. They called the process shambolic, but they found no political interference. What does that tell you? On paper, they call China a security threat, but in practice, they do little to address it. Meanwhile, their government is trying to reset the relationship with China. Listen to what UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said.
A country that poses real national security threats to the United Kingdom. With all that in mind, the absence of engagement is just staggering. A dereliction of duty, because it means that, unlike our allies, we have not been standing up for our interests. Well, no more. It's time for a serious approach, to reject the simplistic binary choice.
So this is the balancing act. Call out the threat, but push for the engagement. Because economic ties are quote-unquote in the national interest. Across Europe, countries are resetting their China policy. Look at France. Their president, Emmanuel Macron, is in China right now. The focus is on trade, market access and economic stability. The European Union still calls China a quote-unquote systemic rival, but it also sees China as a crucial economic partner. So Europe too is walking the same tightrope. Engage with China, but continue warning about espionage. And that brings us to the bigger story tonight, the China paradox. The West says China is a security risk, but they won't cut the cord. They're still dependent on Beijing for trade, investment, critical minerals, and the global supply chains. In a difficult economy, they rely on China for their own growth. It's a classic disastrous failure, a failure to learn from history. For years, Europe called Russia a threat, but they kept their addiction to Russian energy. The severing of that cord was agonizing and long drawn. And now they know that the dragon breathes fire, but they still hope to befriend it.
This is News 18 Net.
Viewers, what a day. The visuals on your screens reinforce the unparalleled goodwill that India and Russia share. That goodwill is personified by the deep connect between Prime Minister Modi and President Putin. Modi surprised Putin with his, quote, unexpected, unquote, gesture of showing up in person at the airport to greet his, quote, dear friend, unquote. Viewers, the Russians are absolutely surprised by this rare gesture of warmth and friendship, and they have taken it to heart in a good way. The two leaders shared a warm hug, and you can see that very clearly, and a firm handshake. PM's gesture stands out even more when one considers that the summit is taking place despite US pressure on India to contribute to the Western effort to isolate Russia. But these pictures of India literally rolling out the red carpet for his friend Putin is a clear signal to Trump and other twitchy Western capitals that Delhi won't surrender its strategic autonomy. If Trump is watching, Trump is unlikely to be pleased. But viewers, his feelings don't really matter. And this is quite clear. He's seeing each of his red lines being breached or redrawn. What was Trump hoping? Trump was hoping that India would no longer trade with Russia, specifically energy, because this would be seen as indirectly supporting Russia's war. What is another Trump red line? That India is continuing to source Russian military hardware or arms is a red flag. Engaging Russia defeats US strategy of working to diplomatically isolate Russia, specifically when the US is forcing some kind of détente between Russia and Ukraine. Russia-India bonhomie assertion of non-West viewed as a challenge to US hegemony. And India's continued reluctance to criticize Russia's aggression in Ukraine a source of annoyance. For decades, Western capitals have viewed Eastern nations not as equal partners, but as resources to be tapped, shaped, or co-opted. Japan's post-war recovery was micromanaged by Washington. China's entry into... Mr. Roma, let's be very, very honest here. America's own approach to even Russia, for example, lacks what many people in India believe is moral rectitude. You want to do business with Russia, critical minerals and so forth, even oil on the table. You want to engage Russia, you want to sit across the table and give them a sweet deal, cut out Ukraine, and you seem to have a grouse. I'm not saying you personally, but Trump seems to have a grouse. If India wants to engage with Russia and buy weapon systems, you in fact have cozied up to a terrorist state, Pakistan, hyphenated it once again with India. General Munir, a person who has said very clearly that he wants to wage jihad, not my words, his words, against India, is a state guest at the White House. You sell weapons, sir, to Pakistan. You also sell weapons to India. So what are we talking about? I feel that the powers that are in Washington, D.C. are looking extremely bad, very poor right now. They haven't been able to dictate terms to New Delhi. They can't get Russia to get off its high horse. They can't, frankly, even bring about a lasting, durable peace in Gaza. Trump's authority looks very compromised, sir.
Well, when you talk to me and to the United States of America about moral rectitude and trying to do the right thing as a global power, I am firmly confident and very optimistic about the role that the United States continues to try to play to create peace when Russia invaded Ukraine and took over its sovereignty and has attacked its people and attacked its prosperity and killed so many thousands of Ukrainian people going back to 2014. The United States is trying to play a positive role in bringing peace to that region of the world. The United States is trying to bring peace to the Middle East that has been at war for decades and decades and decades. And that's not an easy role for the United States to play. But I will continue to say that the United States and India have a very good and positive relationship. In fact, I served on the 9/11 Commission. I was one of the people who recommended that the hyphen be removed from the India-Pakistan relationship, and it has been. And the fact that the United States can reach out to Pakistan and do a rare earths deal or try to do some things to stabilize that country on India's border while still knowing that the strategic relationship with India is the more important prize in terms of our geopolitical relationships, just as we reach out to Pakistan to have a decent relationship with them, but prioritize India, you can't have it both ways and say the United States can't have multiple relationships and strategic autonomy, but we can in India. And we can talk to China, we can talk to Russia, we can talk to Iran, we can talk to anybody in the global south.
You're mistaking me.
But you can't do that in the United States.
I'm saying that if the United States...
That's a contradiction in terms...
No, it's not. What I'm trying to tell you, Mr. Roma, is that the US must apply the same yardsticks that it applies to itself to some of its partners. If it thinks it can engage China and Pakistan and people that we don't like, we can do exactly the same. We can engage Russia on our terms. We want to buy oil from Russia. We should be allowed to buy oil from Russia. This is an arbitrary sanction. China buys more oil from Russia. China hasn't been...
It is December, and that means one thing on campus: the placement season is underway. This year, it has started with a bang. The IITs are once again in the spotlight. An IIT is an Indian Institute of Technology. These are India's premier institutions for engineering students, and recruitment numbers here are breaking records. IIT Kanpur is making headlines. It saw the highest number of offers made on day one of campus recruitment. Global firms are making a comeback, and startups are hiring in bigger numbers. Even core engineering roles are seeing a revival, and that's perhaps the biggest takeaway. After a year of tech layoffs and AI-induced anxiety, top talent is still finding placement. They remain in demand. The jobs have not disappeared, they have just evolved. Here's a report.
It's that time of the year when job offers roll in and the IITs dominate headlines. But this year, the story is different. The placement season hasn't just started well, it's off to a record-breaking start. At IIT Kanpur, the numbers speak for themselves. On day one alone, 672 offers were made. That's the highest ever opening tally for the campus, and a 16% jump from last year. For a student body preparing for job uncertainty, this is a big morale boost. Offers are also coming in early. By the end of the first day, over 500 students had been placed. That includes roles across software, analytics, consulting, and core engineering. And many of them were picked up by global giants. Big brands recruiting on campus: Airbus, SAP, HSBC, BlackRock, Qualcomm, and Accenture. Together, more than 250 companies have already participated at IIT Kanpur, and that number is set to rise. PPOs, or pre-placement offers, have seen a sharp jump. This year, IIT Kanpur recorded 253 PPOs. That's a 27% rise from last year. The reason? Internships are translating into full-time jobs. Firms are hiring students they've already trained. It's saving time and reducing hiring risk. Meanwhile, at IIT Bombay, another headline grabbed attention. A company named Da Vinci made an offer worth 1.48 crore rupees. That's roughly $160,000. This is one of the highest salary packages this year. It's not just one-off either. More high-paying roles are emerging in AI, data science, and quant research. So what roles are in demand? The data is clear. Software and core developer roles are leading. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are big draws. UI, UX, and design roles are less visible this year. Companies want coders, people who can work with data and build with new technology. International placements have also started early. 9 global offers have already been confirmed at IIT Kanpur. More are expected in Phase 2. Students say it's not just about the pay, it's about the kind of work on offer and the confidence that comes with being industry-ready. This placement season is also different because of the context. Over the last year, headlines have been dominated by layoffs, especially in tech, and fears around AI replacing jobs. But the early signs from IITs are reassuring. Demand for top-tier talent still exists, and companies are willing to pay for it. Startups are also hiring again. In 2023, many were cautious. This year, they're back in larger numbers. Core companies are also increasing their hiring. That's helping diversify job profiles. So it's not just software anymore. Mechanical, electrical, and civil engineering graduates are also in demand. The placement season has just begun, but the tone is already set. If this momentum continues, IITs across the country will see strong recruitment. For India's engineering graduates, this is a sign of hope, that the job market is shifting, not shrinking, that there's space for AI-ready talent, and that with the right skills, young professionals can still shape their own future.
Vladimir Putin's trip to India has triggered many questions like, will India buy more Russian weapons? How will Western countries react? How will China see it? Well, these are all serious political questions, and we will answer them tomorrow. But today is all about the vibe. It's a very joyous vibe in the national capital, and that has spilled over to social media. Take a look at this. Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. A NASA rover records electrical sparks and sonic booms on Mars. The Rockefeller Center Christmas tree lights up New York for the holiday season, and a Venezuelan zoo celebrates the birth of a pair of white lions. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in the year 2000, Russian President Putin was in India for a 4-day state visit. He met with then Indian Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. It was his first visit to India as president. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
In this case,